In the beginning, there was no football. There were only people and their instinct to play, to run, to chase, to compete. Thousands of years before stadiums and trophies, humanity created games that mirrored survival itself. Some violent, some joyous, all bound by one common object: a ball. In ancient China, as early as the 2nd century before Christ, a game called cuju was played, kicking a leather ball into nets for both ritual and recreation. In Greece, warriors trained through episkairos, a brutal mix of athletics and combat. And in the vast empire of Rome, harpastum filled training grounds, strengthening legions before battle. By the Middle Ages, Europe had its own version: wild, lawless, and dangerous. Villages in England and France turned feast days into battlefields. Entire towns chased the ball through alleys, across rivers, over fields. Windows shattered. Bones broke. Death was not uncommon. This was not sport. It was survival disguised as celebration. In 1409, King Henry IV of England banned the game outright. He called it a distraction from archery, the skill his armies needed to defend the realm. But banning only made it stronger. Football thrived underground, the people's game, defying crowns and councils. By the 17th and 18th centuries, as cities grew and industry spread, football belonged to the streets. It was chaos and camaraderie, played between factory shifts, after school, or in dirt lots. No rules, no referees, just the ball and the will to win. But in England, change was coming. At schools like Eton, Rugby, and Cambridge, young gentlemen sought order. They split the wild game into versions, some with handling the ball, others only with feet. In 1848, at Cambridge, the first attempt at rules was born. 11 players, boundaries, goals. Football was learning to walk. In the mid-19th century, clubs began to appear: Sheffield in 1857, Notts County in 1862. They were formed by workers, students, soldiers. Football was no longer only a pastime. It was becoming identity, pride, and ritual. But the game was divided. Should the ball be carried or only kicked? For decades, arguments split schools and clubs. This conflict gave birth to two sports: rugby football and association football. And it was in the word association that a new identity emerged: soccer. On October 26, 1863, in London, the Football Association was born. 13 clubs united under one banner, defining the rules of the game we recognize today. No hands, standardized goals, free kicks, referees. Football had finally broken free from chaos. The 19th century carried the game across oceans. British sailors, merchants, and soldiers brought football to Argentina, India, South Africa. In every port, the ball found new feet, new passion. What began as chaos in English villages was becoming a global fever. From villages to empires, football had survived bans, violence, and division. Now, it faced its greatest transformation yet: the rise of professionalism, money, and the dream of glory. The game was about to change forever. By the 1870s, football was no longer a pastime of villages or schools. It was filling grounds with thousands of workers, miners, and factory hands. For the first time in history, the game needed a home, and the stadium was born. Football was caught in a battle of class. For the aristocracy, it was recreation, bound by honor and amateur ideals. But for the working class, football was something else entirely: escape, pride, and community. The gentlemen wanted rules. The workers wanted freedom. The tension exploded when clubs began secretly paying players. Factories and mines sponsored teams. giving workers wages to compete. This was the birth of professionalism, illegal at first, but unstoppable. Football was becoming a livelihood. The Football Association resisted. To them, paying players betrayed the gentlemanly spirit of the game. But the crowds kept growing, and the secret payments could not be contained. By 1885, the FA surrendered. Professionalism was legalized. The game had taken its next great leap. With professionalism came dominance. Clubs like Preston North End, Aston Villa, and Sunderland became legends of the late 19th century. They weren't just teams. They were empires of pride, representing entire regions, entire classes. In September of 1888, history was written. The Football League was born. 12 clubs, one dream, to crown a champion of England. For the first time, football had a national stage, a calendar, a structure. Rivalries that still burn today were lit in those first seasons. With leagues came spectators, tens of thousands standing shoulder to shoulder. Football was no longer just a game. It was theater, ritual, religion. The crowd's roar became as much a part of football as the ball itself. And then there was the Cup. The FA Cup, founded in 1871, became the dream of every club. David could defeat Goliath. Small towns could challenge giants. Every player, every fan, believed in the impossible. As the 19th century closed, the British Empire carried football across continents. From Buenos Aires to Calcutta, Cape Town to Sydney, the ball rolled farther than ever before. What began in muddy fields of England was becoming the world's game. But across the Atlantic, something was stirring. In South America, football would not only take root, it would ignite a fire, transform nations, and create legends that would change the game forever. In the closing years of the 1800s, British workers and sailors brought with them a gift far greater than goods or machines. They carried a ball, and with it, a game. In the ports of Buenos Aires and Montevideo, football found fertile ground. The first matches were played by English communities, expatriates clinging to their traditions. But the locals watched, learned, and soon took the game for themselves. What began as a foreign pastime became a new language of identity. By the early 1900s, clubs were born not from aristocracy, but from neighborhoods, immigrant communities, and working-class pride. Boca Juniors, River Plate, Nacional, Peñarol. These were not just teams. They were families, tribes, banners of belonging. In Brazil, the story was different. The game arrived in the early 1900s, and quickly it fused with music, rhythm, and improvisation. Football here became art, fluid, joyful, unpredictable. The ball was not just kicked. It was danced, but football also revealed divisions. In Argentina and Brazil, the wealthy tried to keep the game theirs, excluding the poor, the immigrants, the black population. Yet football could not be contained. On dusty streets and sandy beaches, the excluded rewrote the game in their own style. In 1910, the first South American Championship was held. Rivalries ignited. Borders turned into battlefields of pride. Football was no longer just a pastime. It was a weapon of national identity. Then came Uruguay. In the 1920s, this small nation astonished the world. They traveled to Paris for the Olympics of 1924 and defeated Europe's best with skill, speed, and elegance. For the first time, South America proved it could conquer the world. In Argentina, football and tango intertwined. Both were born of immigrants. Both spoke of pride, longing, and struggle. The ball rolled to the rhythm of the bandoneon. The field was an extension of the street, of identity itself. In Brazil, the game had become freedom, creativity without limits. Though they struggled at first on the world stage, their style promised a future that would change football forever. The seeds of samba football had been planted, and then destiny arrived. In 1930, the world gathered in Uruguay for the very first FIFA World Cup. It was here that football would transcend borders, politics, and continents. And here, too, that it would taste its first great triumph and its first great tragedy. From muddy fields to professional stadiums, football had risen, but the world was about to change forever. In Part 2, discover how wars, politics, and icons transformed the game. Subscribe and turn on the bell to follow the journey.